Coming up on the 1-0 Sports Show, where we recap Week 0 college football, we look forward to the big games ahead this weekend, and Jordan Mitchell joins us to break down Texas football. All this and more coming up on the 1-0 Sports Show.
Texas finally 1-0, finally riding for the brand.
I like the
I was watching
intro.
the A&M LSU game with my father. He's an Aggie.
Did you make that?
And there's nothing brought me more joy. To throw the touchdown, he was like, oh no.
Yeah.
You heard it here first from Hunter. Book your plane tickets to Omaha today.
I love those. Those are great.
It's on a Saturday night. What y'all doing on Saturday night? Just come to the game.
Athletes come out and support the Longhorns. TCU doesn't have a shot against Texas in this game.
Welcome into the 1-0 Sports Show. I'm Adam Ogburn, joined alongside by Jason Kinander. Jason, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing really well. Really happy to ring in a new year of college football today. It's a beautiful Friday morning on the 40 acres. So happy to be here. Happy to talk some sports.
Yeah, we got a football-heavy show today. So life is good. Football is back in America. But we got to start this 1-0 Sports Show like we do every 1-0 Sports Show. And that's with who's hot, who's not. Jason, who's hot for you right now?
Who's hot? MLB rookies. The talent in Major League Baseball is incredible, and some of these near September call-ups are really putting their names out there. Guy that made an impact this week for me was Gunnar Henderson from the Baltimore Orioles. Consensus top prospect right now in baseball. Second at bat in the major leagues, drilled a 400-foot home run, lost the helmet, the lettuce was flowing across the bases. Really nice look. Another guy, and we don't have the video of it, but another guy who I want to mention is Corbin Carroll of the Arizona Diamondbacks. He actually had a sprint speed of 31.5 feet per second, which is insane. Absolutely insane. Like, that is not just elite baseball player speed, but that is elite athlete, elite human speed. And to see rookies doing that in the MLB, it's exciting. I love it.
How about those Orioles, too, hanging around the AL wildcard playoff race?
Not just hanging around, they are right in the thick of the playoff race, and they could possibly make the playoffs, which is insane to say for a team that went 52-110 last year.
Who would have thought that? I'm going to take it back to the football field. Who's hot for me? How about the backyard brawl last night? Pittsburgh and West Virginia, they hadn't played in 11 years before last night, and it didn't disappoint. Pittsburgh was down late in the fourth quarter in that one, but they got two late touchdowns. They got this big 65-yard pick six by MJ Devonshire to steal a 38-31 victory. West Virginia got all the way down to the goal line on the final play. It fell incomplete, and actually, here's the pick six, by MJ Devonshire running through the West Virginia offense. I mean, that's the way to win a big rivalry game at home.
Yeah, I mean, you got to hope that Texas can have similar luck against Oklahoma, but probably a little bit more comparable to A&M in Texas because of the home and home and the hiatus. But nice to see a Big East football rivalry be back, because Big East football is that's ancient times.
I think that's one of the worst things about realignment is those rivalries that get broken up. So I'm glad that West Virginia Pitt were able to come together and make this one happen. Let's flip side. Now it's time for who's not hot.
So who's not? And I mean, this isn't just this week. This is really the past 4 years. Nebraska football. Yeah, this is low-hanging fruit. I couldn't really think of what. So I'm like, Nebraska football. They went all the way overseas to Dublin, Ireland last weekend. Nationally televised game, standalone game too. It was really the only thing on TV I know because I was watching it. And Nebraska really just kind of didn't show up to play. I mean, they looked good in the first half, and then in the second half, Northwestern came out. Defense was aggressive, making big tackles. Nebraska's offensive line was exposed, and Casey Thompson the week before the game said that he thought that the skill players on Nebraska's team were better, not better, but more deep than that of Texas. Well, that depth was not at all apparent, because the Cornhuskers are 0-1 now with a loss to Northwestern, who were pitiful last season. So not a good start for Nebraska.
The look that Casey Thompson had after that final interception where it went off his receiver's hands, I mean, that was the saddest look I've ever seen, just staring down his receiver.
Yeah.
as Nebraska fell to yet another. I mean, Scott Frost is 5-21 and one-possession games at Nebraska. Like, after a while, that's not a fluke. The problem is with you.
I saw another number that was like he could win his next 35 games and he'll still have a worse record than Bo Pelini did when he was fired at Nebraska. Bo Pelini got fired at Nebraska for not winning enough games. So Scott Frost, the seat isn't just hot, it's probably scorched, and he'll be gone at the end of this year, I think.
He's supposed to be Nebraska's golden boy, but that has quickly fallen apart. For me, I'm going to stay in football. Steve Sarkisian has been making the rounds on Twitter this week, some of his comments from the press conference. He was asked about depth charts, and here's what he had to say earlier this week.
I think for us, everyone wants to know about depth chart and this and that. The reality of it is this is an important week for us from a competition standpoint because a lot of guys are going to play. It's early in the season. It's going to be warm, and we've got to make sure that our 2 deep is very solid. So whether a guy's a 1 or a 2, the reality of it is they're all going to play, and that could happen on special teams, on offense and or defense.
Seems like pretty much ado about nothing. I mean, Sarkisian said they're not going to release a depth chart. The 1s and 2s are all going to play. I mean, for me, I feel like we were kind of talking about this week. I feel like what's the point of necessarily releasing your depth chart? I feel like if you have your depth chart inside the organization, everyone kind of knows where they stand. But then why does everyone else need to know?
I've never thought of it from that angle because a depth chart is something that like fans use, reporters use, opposing teams use. But I haven't realized, like, up until you said that that's something that, like, we don't really need.
Yeah.
And Sark's right. Like, we don't need that. I mean, the game's tomorrow. We don't have the depth chart, and everyone's still alive. So
yeah.
I think that's a really interesting point. I got to think about that a little more. I like that.
Yeah, I would guess within the organization, everyone kind of knows where they stand. And then, he'll let the boosters and everyone else find out tomorrow at 7 o'clock a kick.
Absolutely.
Now let's move on to another segment we like to do. Best thing we've seen on Twitter this week. I'm going to start it off. Let's go NFL preseason football. But it's not the NFL action. Let's take a look at this video from halftime from the Falcons and Jaguars game.
Oh,
we've got the Braves mascot, Blooper the Brave, and he has no mercy on these kids. Look at these stiff arms, man. I mean, he doesn't care, man. I mean, he has no concern. I guess the kids are wearing helmets. So, I mean, Blooper the Brave, he was going all out on these kids.
Do you think he got fired for that?
I'm sure he got a talking to. I mean, oh man, he was not going to lose to a bunch of Pee Wee football players.
Oh God, you just see the one kid go flying. The best thing I saw on Twitter this week, and we don't have time to show the entire video, but I'm sure that you've heard Edwin Diaz's walkout song by now. It's Narco by Timmy Trumpet, and it is a lot of fun because it kind of captivates the entire crowd. Mets have had a great season. They've had these great crowds, and they had the Dodgers in town this week. So the Mets also brought Timmy Trumpet in town too, and he performed Edwin Diaz's walkout song live at Citi Field. It was really cool. I thought it sounded a little rough personally, but that's just because it's a live performance.
Yeah.
And Diaz got the save. So I thought that was super cool, but like the reason why this is not one of our bloopers for the week is because Diaz got the save. If Diaz didn't get the save, it would be the blooper for the week because you have this entire concert basically for a half-inning save appearance. Good thing he got the save. Mets win. Fun stuff, though. Really cool. Never seen that before.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's got to be one of the best walkout songs in all baseball. I mean, that thing is taking the baseball world by storm this year.
Yeah.
So, really cool there. Let's flip it back. So we're going to go from now what we've seen on Twitter. Let's go to what's trending. And, I mean, it's the fall. So football is what's in the news. Before we jump back into college football, let's take a quick trip to NFL. Teams had to cut their rosters down to 53 players this week, so that always leads to a couple of surprising cuts. Jason, were there any standout kind of roster moves or transactions that kind of caught you off guard this week?
This one didn't necessarily catch me off guard, but what really caught my eye was the fact that the Las Vegas Raiders cut their first-round pick from last season, Alex Leatherwood, just a couple of days ago, and to see a first-round pick go that quickly is really, it's bad. And Leatherwood was statistically the worst offensive lineman in the NFL last season, but he was a guard in college He got moved to tackle last year and was terrible, so the Chicago Bears have picked him up. He will likely be moved back to guard, where he will be able to play some not so meaningful football games in Chicago this fall. And it was surprising to see a first rounder get cut that quick, but I like the move because that is a whole lot of upside to have fall into your lap the week before the season starts. So can't complain for Chicago.
The Raiders have a terrible draft record. Like the past 5 years, it's terrible.
Terrible.
Like you look at some of the guys, they've been way over drafting guys. I think they drafted a quarterback. I'm trying to think of his name, but he was a third-round grade. And they drafted him in the first round a couple years ago. I mean, they've been off the rails the past couple years in the draft classes. For me, another guy who kind of caught my eye is Trey Sermon, cut by the 49ers. I mean, last year the hype was how long until he takes over the job from Elijah Mitchell. He didn't get it. But I like the roster moves. The Eagles went and picked him up. I like that because Miles Sanders he's never really caught my eye. I think he's a good starting running back, but I don't think he's a lead or anything. So I think Sermon can at least push to at least try to get some touches in that offense.
And the thing that I was looking at was the Eagles really haven't had a solid running back. I mean, Miles Sanders is a solid running back, so I need to be careful with my wording here, but they haven't had a great running back since LaShawn McCoy. And not that Trey Sermon is going to be that great running back, but it's a whole lot of upside, like I said, to have fall into your lap right before the season starts. So good moves by the Bears and Eagles.
For sure. Now let's flip it back to college football. We had week 0 last Saturday, but how about we finally kind of got the full idea of college football last night. Week 1, plenty of good games across the board. So, Jason, kind of what did you see from last night? Was there a standout game or standout moment for you?
Well, the two games that stood out to me were Pitt versus West Virginia and then Purdue against Penn State. And the thing that made me very excited about these games were they were close.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just me that feels this way, but last year and the year before, I felt like a lot of the games in college football weren't close. And you had these big games that were built up so much, but they wouldn't be that compelling once the players actually took the field. And now, two games that were supposed to be really good on paper, Purdue and Penn State and Pitt, West Virginia, actually ended up being great down-to-the-wire games. So very exciting to see. And the games are only getting better tomorrow, so I'm super excited for this opening week. What did you think, Adam?
Yeah, for sure. I'll tell you what, Gus Johnson was already in mid-season form in that Purdue-Penn State game last night. But yeah, how about Sean Clifford and the Penn State offense? They went 80 yards in a minute 25 to go win that game at Purdue. That's a big Big Ten win for them. Another score that kind of caught my eye, I think a lot of this was scored in garbage time. Oklahoma State gave up 44 points to Central Michigan. So that'll be interesting if that's an indication on their defense or if it was just kind of the second and third string guys. That final was 58-44. So I think Oklahoma State will just be happy to get a win, though, because last time they played Central Michigan, they lost on a Hail Mary 5-6 years ago. Questionable refereeing. So the Cowboys get out against Central Michigan 1-0. But that will do it for our first block. When we come back, there's plenty more football to come. Kylie will join the show. She's going to help me and Jason break down some of the best highlights from the week. You won't want to miss it. You're watching the 1-0 Sports Show. Welcome back onto the 1-0 Sports Show. Kylie Rodriguez joining the show. Kylie, how are you doing this morning?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing great.
That's right.
Fired up to have you on. It's time to break down some of the best highlights of the week. Jason and I are going to go head-to-head in a segment we call Versus. Kylie's going to tell us which play she likes best from each of the categories. So let's start with best baseball play of the week. I think mine is up first. And we're not going to go Major League Baseball on this. We're going to go minor league baseball. Look at this. It's the Akron Rubber Ducks and the Richmond Flying Squirrels. And look at Richmond catcher Britt Auerbach going flying into the netting to make the catch. He's certainly living up to his team's nickname there, an acrobatic catcherman. Jason, what do you got for this week?
Wow, I've never seen that one before. My best play of the week was Brandon Nimmo, Mets, Dodgers. Like we said last segment, big series at Citi Field. Jacob deGrom was on the mound in the 7th inning. Justin Turner absolutely drilled the ball to center. Brandon Nimmo said nope, kept it in there. Big fist pump after. The call by Gary Cohen was awesome. Jacob deGrom very excited. Huge moment. The postseason is a month away and moments like these are already happening. You love to see it. Under the circumstances, great play as well, but under the circumstances is why this is my play of the week in baseball.
Sweet, Kylie. What do you think? What's the best baseball play?
Okay, before I start, don't let this affect our friendship. okay. or like meetings. Anyways, how do we get that out there? Okay. I'm gonna go with Adams because that was like really crazy to see. And like how he stayed, like how he felt. It was really good. I just have to go there.
I've never seen a catcher fly like that.
Yeah, no.
Like that dude had no regard for safety or anything.
Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy.
Let's stay with some baseball. How about this? The Little League World Series always captivates ESPN during the month of August, so we got to pay some homage to it. Let's go with our best Little League World Series play we saw. Mine took place in the earlier rounds of the World Series. It was Massachusetts, I believe, taking on Pennsylvania here. And look at this diving grab in the outfield by Nathan Mello. A great grab there, but then he's going to throw it infield. And Pennsylvania doesn't know what to do. They throw a runner out at home, but then there's questions if the runners had tagged up properly. Great catch by Mello. And then we come back here, and Massachusetts just decides to tag everyone out because Pennsylvania doesn't know what's going on. So a little bit of chaos and some great defense there by Massachusetts.
That's great.
Jason?
You know, for mine, I didn't have a play, and the reason why is because I like the Little League World Series more for the sentiment and for the moments, and I hate to be like this, but I am one of those people that will, like, be looking at it, and kid will make a dive and catch, I'm like, like, that wasn't that impressive. Like, it's just a 12-year-old. So, you know, but my biggest moment from the Little League World Series was the run that Hawaii put together. I mean, they looked like a professional team, which is so weird to say in the Little League World Series, but seriously, set records for home runs by a team, fewest runs allowed, margin of victory. I mean, they literally came into Williamsport and just beat the life out of everyone, won the trophy, and are probably going to go back to Hawaii and all become MLB players in the next 10 to 15 years. So really fun run to watch, beating Curacao in the championship game. Not very close championship game, as you can see that it was actually clinched by the run rule, but cool for those guys from Hawaii. It's not a state that you hear a lot of baseball coming from, and to see them win, especially in the nature that they did, impressive and cool to watch.
Kylie, what do you think? What was the best Little League World Series moment?
I gotta go with Jason's because it is really that's really cool that they set all those records, and it's like, you don't ever really hear anything about Hawaii, like surfing maybe and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I gotta go with that one.
There's not a ton of home runs in the Little League World Series. Yeah. Those Hawaii kids were
hitting tanks. These kids were hitting tanks. Yeah, that was crazy.
Respect to the Hawaii players for bringing home that championship. Now let's go back to football. We got a little bit of a taste of college football last week, enough to each find a best play from what we like to call Week 0. So I dug out a little bit of a smaller college football Division I, Utah State taking on UConn. And look at this catch in the back of the end zone by Utah State receiver Justin McGriff. He's going to get his foot just in bounds. I mean, UConn is not the greatest football team, but what a catch this is by Justin McGriff over the UConn defender. Just about gets that foot in bounds. An acrobatic catch for sure.
You know, that was pretty funny how you described them as not the greatest football team, but the Jim Mora era underway in UConn, very interesting, even though they weren't even the focus of that highlight.
0-1 already. So
0-1 already.
Not much has changed by the whole
Well, so my top play, and this is really funny actually, because he is an old friend of ours, not of TSTV, but of the University of Texas. Casey Thompson at Nebraska. They did not win in Dublin, but he made this pretty amazing play. Take a look at this. Reminiscent of Johnny Manziel here. Looks pretty set to scramble, and then turns around, says nope, throws it right in the face of the defender, and actually fooled the cameraman too. Hits it deep, near touchdown. Would have been a little bit cooler if it was a touchdown, but pretty interesting for Casey Thompson. Nice scramble. He really didn't do a whole lot of that at Texas. I feel like he sat in the pocket more and threw the ball. Not that great. So
he held onto that ball. I think they showed on the replay. 12 seconds. 12 seconds.
12
to
seconds
around the pocket.
That's crazy.
It's absurd.
Some sort of offensive line to let you do
also,
that.
Yeah, he would have been able to scramble for 12 seconds for Texas. He would have been planted into the turf by then. Kylie, what have you got for best week 0 play?
I think the best week is Adams, just because it is like that catch was crazy and how he barely stepped in. It's good to see catches like that. I mean, and he got a touchdown with it, so.
There we go. So we got best week 0 play. Now let's move on. Flip side, worst blooper of the week. This can be from any sport. Mine is actually going to be of a TV interview. Let's take a look at this highlight. Or I don't know if I'd call it highlight, probably low light. This is an interview. Tri-University coach. They're a D3 football team up in the Midwest, and their coach is going to take. some punishment. His players coming behind him in practice. Yeah, I think he felt that one in the morning.
Oh my God, how can I ever beat that? How can I ever beat that? I don't even have a video because mine happened last night, and it was at the Penn State-Purdue game. Penn State quarterback Sean Clifford kept running off the field into the locker room in the second half. People are like, what's going on? Is he cramping up? And then people are like, wait a minute, how is he cramping up if he's running to the locker room? Well, there is a Twitter theory last night that I think will turn out to be correct in the next few days, and especially if you watch his post-game interview. A lot of people think that he might have possibly had diarrhea, and I think that's hilarious because we forget that athletes are people too, and to think that a quarterback has diarrhea in the second half of a conference game, I love it. I'm all for it. It shouldn't even be a blooper. It should just be like the best human being moment of the week. So love it.
The One and Sports Show already in midseason form with that one. Yeah, I mean, it didn't affect me. He let a game-winning touchdown drive at the end.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, that is absolutely I've never heard of that, and I think about not to get TMI here, but times when number 2 can't focus at all, more or less trying to win a football game like that. Incredible stuff. Yeah.
The analysis you won't find anywhere else on the One and Sports Show. Kylie.
This is a hard part.
What you got for worst blooper of the week?
Both
Is this a hard answer to push out?
Oh my God.
God, the FCC's gonna love us this week.
It's a hard decision to make. But I mean, I think Adams wins because that coach really did get flat out leveled. And
I just saw his head go back.
yeah, he just got total whiplash. So I feel like that one is the best blooper because he didn't expect it.
He might be in concussion protocol.
Yeah.
All right, let's go quickly. Show and tell. It can be anything that we think would be worth showing. Mine also happened last night. Let's see. I think we have a video. Tennessee taking on Ball State, and I think the Tennessee offensive lineman, he's looking for an early acting award with this nice flop. I mean, you're a big old lineman, man. Isaac Green for Tennessee, and that is like a 5-second stumble fall. I mean, if you're getting pushed over by a Ball State linebacker, I mean, that's a little concerning.
That's bad. All right, wow.
Jason, what you got?
My show and tell is, you said it can bring anything funny, cool, etc. So I just actually just want to wish a happy birthday to my mom. It was her 59th birthday on Wednesday, and wasn't able to spend it with my mom in person, but I know that she definitely had a good day golfing and having my sister and my dad be there. So, Mom, enjoy your day when I send this to you, and
there you go. MVP level stuff right there. Good stuff, man.
I'm a really good son. I'm not good at that many things, but I am a pretty good son. So.
Kylie?
Well, I can't go against him wishing.
Yeah, you gotta go with the birthday message.
I have to go with Jason because he wished his mom a happy birthday, which I also do. So.
There you go. Way to kill it. Well, that was a fun segment. When we come back, it's time to put our reputations on the line. College football season predictions when we return on the One and O Sports Show. Welcome back into the 1-0 Sports Show. It's time for college football season predictions. Now, we're going to first start off by looking at 6 teams. We're going to do over-under, whether we think they'll match the win total that Vegas has set down for them. So let's start with our friendly neighbors, unfriendly neighbors maybe over across the College Station. Texas A&M, Vegas has them at 8.5 wins. Over or under? Jason, let's start with you.
I'm going to go with the under here, and it's because sort of a transition year for Jimbo Fisher, losing quite a few players, but bringing in a freshman class, one of the best freshman classes of all time. Don't think it's going to mesh that quickly. Quarterback is the biggest concern for me. Will it be Haynes King? Will it be Connor Weigman? Either way, I don't think that it's going to be an efficient answer. SEC is great. SEC will turn A&M into a 7-win team. So 8.5, that's just about right on the money, but I'm going to go with 8.
Kylie, what you got?
I think they're gonna make it. So I think they're gonna go over just because they're ranked, 6th. They have Jimbo Fisher. They beat Alabama last season. So I mean, and they're competing in the SEC, which is one of the most difficult conferences in college football. So that's why.
I was going back and forth on this one. I think they're right around 8-4, 9-3 mark. I'm going to go with the 8-4 mark. I mean, look at their schedule. They got Miami, Arkansas, Alabama, Ole Miss, Florida, LSU, Auburn this year. That's a tough schedule. They don't have an established. They have good quarterback options, but they're not established. They're not experienced quarterback options. I'm going to go 8-4. I'm going to go the under for Texas A&M. Now let's flip over to another Texas arch nemesis. Lincoln Riley out now at USC. Vegas has them at over under 9.5 wins. Kylie, over under for you.
I say over because they do have Lincoln Riley now, who took Oklahoma to the Big 12 championship last year, and he lost, but he still took them there. So I think he can do something with USC and help make them go to the Pac-12 championship too. So.
I agree with that. I'm going to take the over. I think this is kind of a 10-2 squad. He has a lot of good transfers. Jordan Addison, Caleb Williams, plus the Pac-12's weak. I'm going over for USC.
I'm going to hammer the over here as well. If they beat Notre Dame or Utah, USC probably makes the playoff, which is pretty weird to say. Caleb Williams, Lincoln Riley, Mario Williams, Jordan Addison, Travis Dye, all these new names, yet you've already heard of them, which is pretty crazy. Very rare to see that in college football. I'm excited about it. Sort of a free agent built team, which is really weird, but over on this one for sure.
Welcome to the transfer portal. Continuing the string of Texas rivals, Oklahoma over under 9.5 wins. Big season now. Brent Venables first in charge. Jason, over or under for you?
I'm going to go with the under here. I am not buying into the Dylan Gabriel hype. I think that Oklahoma lost a lot last season. The Big 12 is very strong. Texas will be improved. Baylor's good. Oklahoma State's good. Kansas State will be improved. So Oklahoma, new head coach, defensive head coach in an offensive conference. It'll be better in the SEC, but for now, might be a little rough for the Sooners. Under.
I was going back and forth on this. I'm going to go over. I think they're 10-2 though. I think they're taking 2 losses in the regular season. But Brent Venables, long time, very good defensive coordinator for Clemson. I think Oklahoma. It'll take a little bit of time to sell Dylan Gabriel in. But I mean, this Oklahoma team, they always find a way to kind of rise to the top. So I'm going 10-2. Hopefully one of those losses to Texas. Kylie, what you got?
I agree. I'm going over just because the Big 12 is not the greatest, but it's not worse. But they went to the Big 12 championship last year, and so yeah. And their really competition is Baylor. No offense to Longhorn fans or anything, but yeah.
Well, for sure. Now let's go up to the Big Ten. Michigan made the playoff, finally broke through under Jim Harbaugh last year. Vegas has them at 9.5 wins this year. Kylie, you going over or under on that?
I think I'm going to go under on this one just because they, last year they were decent. They weren't that good, but I don't know. I think 9.5 is a little high for me just because they didn't win as much last year. So, yeah.
I'm going to go with the over on this one. I'm a big fan of this Michigan team. I think that the Big Ten is not as good as it was last year. And last year it wasn't even that good. Michigan was a surprise playoff team last season. The one thing for me, though, is Jim Harbaugh hasn't named a starter yet. And he's going to have Cade McNamara start week 1. He's going to have J.J. McCarthy start week 2. I cannot stand that idea. Name J.J. McCarthy the starter. He looked awesome in the second half against Georgia in the playoff. I'm going to go with the over for the Wolverines.
I've never seen a team do that. We're going to start one quarterback week 1, we're going to start one quarterback week 2, and then we're going to choose our starter in week 3. Very interesting tactic. But I'm going to go the over as well. Their non-conference schedule is garbage. They're playing UConn, Hawaii, and Colorado State. That's 3 easy wins. I think I could see them taking 2 losses in Big Ten play, and still you're at 10-2. So I'm going to go over on that one. Interesting one here. Clemson, are they back or not? Vegas has them at 10.5 wins. Over or under on this one. Jason, what you got?
So Vegas is clearly sort of insinuating that they think that Clemson can make the playoff this year. I do not. I actually really like the ACC, and as we saw last night, Pitt looked really good. NC State returning almost their entire team from last year. Miami's going to look great. Wake Forest is going to be good when Sam Hartman comes back. So many heavy hitters in the ACC, which is so weird to say because Clemson used to run that conference. 10.5 is super high. I think that there's something fishy with that, but I'm still going to take the under.
I agree with you, Jason. I'm going to take the under as well. I think this is a 2-loss Clemson team. They lost both their coordinators last year. They lost their lead tackler, James Skalski, on defense. They're going to take some time. DJ Ugalele, he's trying to settle down. Is he going to be had some struggles in his sophomore year? It'll be interesting to see how he develops this year. So I'm taking the under on Clemson. I think this is only a 10-win team, not more than that. Kylie, what you got?
I think it's a little high, yeah. I think I'm going to take the under too, just because, I know they're ranked 4 and everything, and they have an easy schedule, but it's I think it's too high, and I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs because there's a bunch of other good teams.
Now for our favorites, the Texas Longhorns come in over under 8.5. Steve Sarkisian looking to bounce back from a 5-7 season. Kylie, what do you think over under for the Longhorns?
I think they can win 8.5 games, just because they have all the wide receivers and everyone, and they're not really ranked high, but their schedule seems pretty easy. They just can't lose to ULM Monroe or UTSA. They just gotta do what they know they can do. Yeah.
I'm going to go over. I'm going to bank on 9-3. I think Bama's definitely going to be a loss, and then that gives you 2 bullets to take in conference play. I think this Texas team, the O-line, we're going to have to see how the O-line solidifies because Quinn Ewers is going to need protection back there. I think they're kind of around that 8-4, 9-3 mark. I think Vegas is kind of nailed with the over-under. I'm going to be slightly optimistic. I'm going to say over 9-3. Jason,
I'm going to go with the over as well here because I do think that the Bama game will be a loss, but I think Texas does beat Oklahoma this year, and I think that they will also beat Baylor at home. So the Oklahoma State game on the road becomes a massive game. I don't think that Texas will be able to win it this year, but we'll see. I'm going to go with the over 8.5. Like you said, I like 9 wins. 10 wins would be a great mark for Sark in year 2, especially after winning 5. So I'm going to go with over, but not a very confident pick. Light confidence here.
For sure. Now let's flip into the conference predictions. So we're going to go through the 5 power conferences and take a look at who we think is going to win them. Let's fire through these pretty quick. How about ACC? Jason, who you got winning the ACC this year?
I've got North Carolina State winning the ACC this year. I'm a big fan of Devin Leary. I really like the way that NC State played last year. They were in every game. They beat Liberty as well in a thriller of a ball game. That was really my first taste of Devin Leary and that tough defense, and I think that NC State's going to be able to run the table and make some noise, so I'm going with the Wolfpack.
NC State's going to be fun to watch. I've got Clemson just edging them, though. I think Pittsburgh, who won it last year, I think they take a step back with Kenny Pickett graduated. They looked good last night, but I just think Clemson, Dabo Swinney knows how to win. He's proven how to win. I think Clemson will take advantage. I think they're going to take a lump or two in regular season play, but I think by the time it comes to the conference championship, Clemson's going to come out on top. Kylie, who you got?
I agree. I think Clemson's going to win just because, it's an easier conference and they've been to college playoffs and everything, so I think they're going to take it.
Big 12. Kylie, who do you have in that?
I put Oklahoma just because, I know it's a transition year and everything, but the only real competition they have, I say, would be Baylor. And Baylor's looking good too, but yeah, I say Oklahoma.
I'm not buying into the Dylan Gabriel hype. I think he's going to take a little bit to settle down. He's coming in from UCF up into the Big 12. So I'm going to go with Baylor. Dave Aranda and the Bears won it last year. They've got their quarterback back this year in Blake Shapen. I think the Bears come out on top again in the Big 12. It's a wide open conference. I think you could make a strong argument for 5-6 teams winning the conference this year.
Which is really fun to say because it had always been Oklahoma at the top, and now Oklahoma entering a transition year. It'll be very interesting to see how the Big 12 shapes out. I'm going to go with Baylor, though. Like you said, Blake Shapen's going to be a very good quarterback for the Bears. We got our first taste of him in their in their New Year's Six bowl game. And I'm not high on Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma State is good, but they just gave up 40 points to Central Michigan. Texas has good roster, but that would be ridiculous to predict them winning the Big 12. Might do it anyway, but I'm going with Baylor.
How about the Big 10? Michigan finally broke through this year. Does that happen again, or does someone else rise to the top? Jason, what do you think?
This will be a quick one, I think, around the horn. Ohio State, that receiving core is incredible. C.J. Stroud is my first overall pick in next year's draft. Ryan Day, probably the best coach in college football, not named Nick Saban, so the Buckeyes are my surefire Big 10 pick.
3 words, Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think he's going to have a heyday in the Big 10 this year. Give me the Buckeyes to win the conference.
Yep.
I also went with Ohio State just because they are looking to – they're in a lot of preseason Pro Bowls they have. They're looking to go in the college playoffs, and they're already ranked high. So, yeah, I'm going with Buckeyes too.
How about the Pac-12? It's been a little bit interesting in recent years. We've seen a couple different teams kind of rise up and take it. Is USC back this year? That's what a lot of people are talking about. Kylie, who do you have winning the Pac-12?
I have USC winning the Pac-12 conference just because they have Lincoln Riley, and he's been to a Big 12 championship with Oklahoma, and so I think he can take the USC, the Trojans, to the Pac-12 championship and win it.
Give me Utah. I think Utah's going to be knocking on the door of playoff appearance this year. I like what Kyle Whittingham's done there. They have Cam Rising coming back, who was a talented quarterback for them last year. I think USC, with a new coach, a lot of players coming from the transfer portal, they could take a little bit of growing pains. So give me Utah to win the Pac-12. I believe the Pac-12 too, they're doing it this year where just the top 2 teams overall playing the conference championship game. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But give me the Utes to win the Pac-12.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with USC here. I love Caleb Williams, Mario Williams, Jordan Addison, Travis Dye. The list goes on and on and on and on, and they have a pretty easy schedule. So, not Utes, actually, Trojans. So, USC.
Final pick, the SEC. It's going to be Texas stomping grounds here in a couple of years, but right now it's currently pretty much belong to Alabama and Georgia. Guys, do we have one of those two? Do we think someone else is rising to the top? Jason, who do you have winning the conference?
I'm going to go with Georgia running it back. I think that Alabama's offense is actually a little bit thin. Looking at their opening week depth chart, not a lot of familiar names at wide receiver, tight end, Cameron Latu's back. But Georgia lost a lot from that great defense. I like Stetson Bennett making a run as a 6th-year senior. I think that's going to be a really fun story. Still returning Brock Bowers, who in my opinion is the most exciting offensive player in the country. So I'm very excited to see how the SEC pans out. As always, it is going to be a loaded conference, and maybe we'll have a team like an LSU or an Auburn emerge from the rust and just kind of make a run. But I'm going to have to go with Georgia here. I mean, they ran the table, won the national championship last year, and until they get knocked from that throne, I'm going to have to go with the Bulldogs.
Give me Bama. I just like Bama's defense too much. I think Will Anderson's going to be a menace to opposing quarterbacks this year. I like the Crimson Tide. I think Nick Saban, it's going to be the Nick Saban revenge tour. This guy doesn't lose much, and believe me, he's going to have Bama fired up and ready to go this year.
Yeah, I also took Alabama to win the SEC just because they're ranked 1, and most people think that they're going to win the championship, and that has been like in 20 years that no one's ever thought like that much. So I think they're going to win it.
Well, sweet. That does it for all our predictions. So we'll store this tape away and pull it out here in about 4 months and see how this all went down. Kylie, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. When we come back, Daily Texan football reporter Jordan Mitchell joins the show. She'll break down the upcoming 2022 Texas football season, and then we'll close out the show as we always do with our pick'ems for all the big Week 1 games ahead. Don't go anywhere. You're watching the 1-0 Sports Show. Welcome back into the 1-0 Sports Show, now joined by Daily Texan football reporter Jordan Mitchell. Jordan, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing?
Good to have you on again. So we'll start. You're going to break down some Texas football questions for us, and then we'll make you, of course, put your reputation on the line at the end with some season predictions. But let's get off. It was a busy offseason for Texas. They got some key transfers, some key recruits. Gary Patterson joined the staff. So, Jordan, kind of what storylines from this offseason really stood out to you as we head into 2022?
Yeah, it has undoubtedly been such a flashy offseason for Texas. Even if you ignore the Arch Manning commitment and the Arch effect that snowballed after, you see Quinn Ewers come home. He wins the starting QB gig. You see Texas land a couple more really big name transfers like Isaiah Nayer and Ajayi Hall. Hall then gets it suspended. Nayer comes down with an ACL injury on the first day of scrimmage alongside Junior Angalau. And yeah, there's a lot going on there, but I think that the biggest offseason story has to be those coaching hires. I mean, you have Coach Choice come in, who's just this really great running back coach. He played for the Dallas Cowboys for a few years, and he's just going to make our really good running back room that much better. You have head coach Brennan Marion come in. I mean, he coached a consensus All-American over there, and that wide receiving core last year led the ACC in total yardage, which is a huge deal, especially whenever you have a wide receiver powerhouse like Clemson in your conference. And then there's Gary Patterson, who revolutionized TCU's defense in his 20 years there. And even though that he's going to be playing more of a consultant, administrative-esque role for Sark, it's going to be something really interesting that develops throughout the rest of the season, seeing his defensive play style come alive.
So obviously UL Monroe is not like the caliber of a team that Texas will be playing come Big 12 play, but what do you need to see out of Texas tomorrow night for you to think that week 1 is a success?
I really need to see Quinn Ewers comfortable running this offense. It's really tough coming into a program in the spring. He doesn't have any starting experience in college, even though he had that perfect composite rating from 24/7 Sports while in high school. We just want to see him looking really composed and comfortable in the system, being able to make those easy screen passes, check downs, drive the ball down the field. I don't just want to see flash from Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, now the big question is Ewers obviously winning the job over Hudson Card. Do you think that's the correct call? Is he the answer at quarterback, and will he start all 12 games? So not injuries, but do you see him starting all 12 games, or do you think Sark kind of flips up the quarterbacks like he did last year?
Honestly, it doesn't really matter if I think that he is the answer at quarterback. I think now that that decision has been made, Sark has to stick with it. Ewers has such a crazy upside. He has this really big ceiling, obviously a generational talent at quarterback. But this is a really young Texas team, and we have a really young Texas quarterback here. And Sark said in his press conference that there's going to be some growing pains. At the first sign of trouble, Sark cannot pull out Quinn, stunt that development, and throw at Hudson Card. I think he just kind of has to stick to it now so he can be developed into this prototypical Alabama-esque quarterback that Sark wants. Ewers has to start every game.
So who's an X factor that you think that Texas fans should keep their eye on this year? Somebody that no one's talking about up until tomorrow?
I don't know if this is an out-of-the-box pick or not. I am going to have to go with Jatavion Sanders. Sark listed him as one of the players that has made the biggest stride this offseason. And I think that he can be really important for Ewers getting comfortable in the system because he can block for running backs, wide receivers. He can also make some of those easy checkdowns and be a real threat in the red zone. If Jatavion Sanders comes in and is really reliable for Texas, I think that that is huge.
Yeah, for sure. He's an athletic freak. I mean, I don't know, Jason, have you seen the highlights of where, he's catching one-handed in high school against defensive backs, so it'll be fun to see him for the Texas offense this year. But now looking at this Texas team as a whole, there's a lot of talented players. There's Bijan Robinson, Xavier Worthy. There's a lot of players getting national attention. But what player do you think will be the MVP for Texas this year?
Honestly, give me DeMarvion over Sean. Not necessarily for the reasons that you would think, though. We all know that he's a great tackler. He's been on a good amount of Big 12 preseason watch lists. He's going to be a player to watch this season. He's a super senior. He's one of those few people left from that 2018 defensive back class. Obviously, he's a linebacker now. He made that switch a couple of years ago. But I think that Demo is going to provide immense value to the team as this vocal leader. Texas has had a culture problem for years, a culture that really hasn't been a very healthy one since the Mac Brown days. This Texas defense needs those vocal leaders, and I think that Demo is going to be running that charge.
So just put it straight up. How many games does Texas win this season, and are they going to contend for a Big 12 title?
Yeah, we don't mess around on the One in a Sports show. we want specific answers. Let's see it.
There isn't a correct answer to this question because I think that Texas has such a high ceiling and such a low floor. I'm going to be diplomatic. I'm going to give them 8-4 because you just kind of assume that they're going to lose to Alabama, but then you have them going on the road at Oklahoma State and Tech. You have Baylor, who's been phenomenal. And then you have UTSA thrown in there, who could be a scary, scary competitor, especially after playing Alabama. Give me 8-4. I do think that UT should win the Golden Hat this year, so that's something to look forward to.
Yeah, for sure. This is a Texas team. It just feels like kind of another transitional year, settling in Quinn. You were settling in that offensive line. So it'll be fun to watch this Texas team. Jordan, she's not going anywhere. We're going to make her make some predictions on all the Week 1 games along with us. We've got a great slate of games.
Every single Week 1 game.
Every single one?
Every single Week 1 game.
Only the top ones. And we got a pretty good slate to choose from. So stay tuned for that. You're watching the 1-0 Sports Show.
I'm glad I can be a little bit looser, that's fine.
Yeah.
No, that's what it's
I mean, that's why I don't really like. Because press box, I gotta do that.
Welcome back into the 1-0 Sports Show. It's time to wrap it up like we do every week, and that is with our pick'ems. And this week, with Week 1 of college football, we're just picking 10 college football games. Have to do that. We're going to start tonight. There's an interesting Power 5 matchup up in Boulder, Colorado. TCU traveling up to Colorado. They're getting 13.5 points over the Buffaloes. Remember, we'll pick these against the spread. So, Jason, who do you have in that one?
Yeah, I'm going to go with TCU covering, but Colorado winning. I think that 13.5 points. Oh, actually, TCU's favorite. Wow, I thought that they were underdogs. So I'm actually going to go with TCU in this game. Sonny Dykes is a great hire out of SMU. Big fan of that move. TCU usually plays very well in non-conference play. Colorado is a tough environment, but haven't been a great team the past few years. So I'm going to go with the Horned Frogs kicking off non-conference play well.
You got them covering?
Yeah, winning and covering.
The Horned Frogs. Okay,
2 touchdowns.
Good start to the Sonny Dykes area. I've also got TCU winning, but I think Colorado can hang around. I think Friday night up in Boulder, Colorado, I think that atmosphere is going to be insane. I've got TCU winning, but I think only by about a score. Jordan, what about you?
I have TCU taking this one, no diggity, no doubt, though.
I did not expect that.
Let's go.
That could just be my Big 12 bias showing. I mean, Colorado really struggled finding ways to score last season. I think they only had a couple of games where they scored more than 20 points. I think that the Horned Frogs should be able to prove themselves against a team that has had a losing streak at home since 2012.
Yeah, Colorado looked hapless in that Alamo Bowl game. I think it was about a year and a half where Texas just ripped them apart. Now let's go. Interesting in-state matchup here. North Carolina is going to go on the road to Appalachian State. They're getting half a point, so this is basically a straight-up pick. So who do you guys have? North Carolina, Appalachian State. Jordan, let's start with you.
Give me App State. I mean, they are riding a 6-game home streak, and you bet that that stadium is going to be rocking. There's nothing else to do up there. Even though Bryce has lost a couple of his top receivers, I think that his 3,300-yard season from last year has to amount to something.
Yeah, I'm actually going to disagree, although I think the line is pretty funny. North Carolina being only half-point favorites in Boone, North Carolina against App State. I'm a big fan of Drake May. I think Drake May looked awesome last week against Florida A&M. Of course, it was Florida A&M, but people have been talking about Drake May for a while. Great passer. Love how North Carolina looked. Mac Brown. Would Mac Brown really lose to Appalachian State? I don't know. So I'm going to go with the Tar Heels. We'll see.
I say not so fast, my friend. Appalachian State, they've got Chase Bryce. He played at Clemson and Duke. He's got the ACC experience. They're going to be partying up in the Appalachian Mountains tomorrow night. Take the Mountaineers at home over North Carolina.
Want to see what that looks like.
Yeah. Cincinnati and Arkansas. This is an interesting top 25 matchup. That one in Fayetteville tomorrow. Jason, who do you have in that one? Arkansas, 6.5.
Give me the Razorbacks. Kendall Briles finally has a quarterback returning for his second year, and it is Mr. KJ Jefferson, who looked pretty cool at times last season, especially against Texas. I'm not sold on Cincinnati, losing so many great players. Sauce Gardner, Kobe Bryant, Myjai Sanders. Those are just the defensive players. And then you look at the offense, and they're also losing Jerome Ford, Desmond Ridder, their big quarterback, Alex Pierce. It is not going to be a pretty opener. I've got Arkansas by 2.5 touchdowns, even though the line's only 6.5.
Hey, woo pig, baby. Great pick. KJ Jefferson's back. I think Razorbacks roll. Like you said, Cincinnati's got to reload. They don't have Desmond Ridder. Arkansas, big win at home. Sam Pittman, he's going to be turning that jukebox on after the game. Jordan, who do you have?
I've also got Arkansas. I mean, whenever you lose your starting QB, some of your top receivers, and a chunk of your secondary, I'm not going to expect the Cincinnati team to have everything figured out week 1. Arkansas is looking to build off that strong 2021 season and to potentially contend for the SEC West. They have to start out with a big win here at home.
For sure. Interesting in-state matchup here in Texas. Houston traveling to the Alamo Dome to take on UTSA. Houston 4-point favorites. Jordan, who do you have in that one?
I refuse to pick against a team that has their D-line dubbed Sack Avenue. Without UTSA's star running back from last season, I think that Houston should at least cover the spread.
UTSA's quarterback has been in school forever. Frank Harrison rolled back in 2017. He's still starting. He's got the experience. I think Jeff Traylor and the Roadrunners, I think they give Houston a run for their money. I'm not sure if they win, but I think they cover. This one is going down to the wire in the Alamo Dome.
Yeah, I'm actually going to say that the Roadrunners end up winning. One more year of UTSA magic. It was a lot of fun last year. The Alamo Dome was crazy at times. Frank Harris is back for another season of college football. He's not going to want to start it off with a loss at Houston. Huge game for UTSA if they want any outside chance of competing for an undefeated group of undefeated New Year's Six bowl spot. Sorry. Had to spit that out. So, but yeah, I'm going to go with UTSA in this one.
Yeah, don't we talk about undefeated spots because we know the Roadrunners have to come here in week 3. Let's move on. Big Power 5 matchup. This one, number 11 Oregon traveling to take on number 3 Georgia. Georgia's 17.5-point favorites in this one. Jason, who do you have?
I'm going to go with Georgia. I love that offense. I love Brock Bowers. It'll be cool seeing Stetson Bennett back, the best coach team in the country. Led them to a national championship last year. They'll look to begin that defense tomorrow. I think that they'll win and cover against Oregon.
And cover. I think Oregon will hang around in this one. They went up to Ohio State. They beat the Buckeyes in Columbus last year. I don't think they'll beat the Dogs. I think the Dogs are going to start the title defense on the right foot. But I see this one as more of a 10 to kind of 13-point ball game. So give me the Dogs to win, but Oregon to cover. Jordan, who do you have?
I don't trust Bo Nix as far as I can throw him, and there's no shot I can throw him very far. Give me the defending national champs taking care of business at home.
Another really interesting Power 5 matchup, this one down in Florida. Utah is going to make the cross-country track to take on the Gators tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Utah 2.5-point favorites. Jordan, who do you have?
I don't love any team coming to play an SEC team at home, but the Swamp is a scary, litty place to play. But I think that Utah takes it. Florida is entering a rebuild year. Utah is riding high expectations with that revamped roster and a near win against Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. I like Utah.
I'm going with the Utes.
Hey, great pick.
I'm going with the Utes. I'm going with the Utes. Cameron Rising looked awesome in the Rose Bowl, and I think that America was rooting for Utah in that game. They couldn't pull it out against Ohio State, but that was an awesome introduction to that squad, and I think that playing a nationally televised game in Florida, in Gainesville, is going to be a big test, but if Utah wants to get the Pac-12 off the schneid and finally get them a playoff team, it starts tomorrow in Gainesville. I've got the Utes and the points.
Yeah, Utah's making a playoff push. They're winning tomorrow. Now, this is the big one tomorrow night. Number 5 Notre Dame traveling to Columbus to take on number 2 Ohio State. Not much respect from Vegas, though. They've got Ohio State as 17.5-point favorites. Jason, who do you have? Will the Fighting Irish show up tomorrow night?
No. Buckeyes. I love Jackson Smith and Jigba. Marvin Harrison Jr. CJ Stroud begins his Heisman campaign tomorrow night. Buckeyes are going to win by a lot. At least 3 touchdowns is my prediction. When it happens, I'll be posting it on Twitter. So, Buckeyes.
Great pick. I think Notre Dame, they are always overrated when it comes to these big-time matches. I think Ohio State blows them out in the second half. Big Buckeyes victory, big statement win at home, and we want to listen to Notre Dame and talk about playoff contention the rest of the year. Jordan?
As a college football fan, I passionately hate Ohio State, but I don't think that you can really pick against them here. I mean, you have CJ Stroud starting off his Heisman campaign. You have Jackson Smith and Jigba. They're going to come out guns a-blazing, and it's going to be kind of fun watching Notre Dame get humbled so early in the year.
It wouldn't be week 1 without some Pac-12 after dark. Boise State from the Mountain West traveling to take on the Pac-12's Oregon State. Interesting one here. The Beavers 2.5-point favorites. Jordan, who do you have in this one?
I have Boise State. I mean, neither team really has a reliable defense here, and both teams are coming off 7-win seasons. I just don't really want to take a team that had a QB battle during the offseason when the Broncos have a fairly reliable starting QB.
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of those stupid, Pac-12 after dark games. I think it could get a little bit crazy. Give me the Broncos. Oregon State lost to Utah State in the Jimmy Kimmel Bowl last year, so they haven't fared well against Mountain West competition. So give me the Broncos and their quarterback, Hank Brockemeyer.
That's an actual bowl, the Jimmy Kimmel Bowl?
Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl.
They could give one person a bowl game and it was Jimmy Kimmel?
Hey, you pay enough money, man.
That's crazy. You know, I'm a big fan of Hank Bachmeier, and for Jordan's reason as well, I don't like taking a team that went through a quarterback duel in the offseason. Don't think Corvallis is exactly going to be bumping on Saturday night, so I'm going to go with Boise State. They love games like this. Always see the Broncos show up big when the lights are not shining at all, so latest into Saturday night, and I'm going to have to go with Boise State on this one.
Okay, let's move forward to Sunday. Florida State's going to travel down to LSU, down into Death Valley. They're going to take on the Tigers and Brian Kelly's newfound Southern accent. The Tigers getting 3.5 points in that one. Jason, who do you have?
Wow, this line is weird. This is a weird line, and for that reason, I'm going with Florida State. I think that Vegas knows something that we don't know. LSU should not be only 3.5 point favorites against a team that lost to Jacksonville last year. Florida State lost to Jacksonville last year. I'm going to go with the Seminoles. Something weird's going on. No other reason other than that, though.
I have LSU. This is going to be a game that's going to be won in the trenches, and I think I'm going to trust Brian Kelly and his newfound Southern accents, coaching and departing Coach O's recruiting. QB play for LSU does look a little shaky going into the year, but I think that the Tigers should take this.
This kind of gives me Texas Notre Dame vibes from like 5 or 6 years ago. Like two teams that like are big name programs on Sunday night, but then they might turn out just to be average, but it could be a great game. Give me LSU, I think, at home. I think they find a way to win that one over the Noles. They have a star wide receiver, Keyshawn Butte, is back after suffering an injury last year. So apparently he's the next big thing for the NFL. So it could be a
Jamar Chase comparisons for Butte. He was awesome in 2020.
So it'll be fun to see him back. So give me the Tigers in that one. And then finally, let's wrap it up. Texas and UL Monroe. No close game this year. Texas had an entry test against UL Lafayette last year in week 1, but this time it's Lafayette's neighbors Monroe. And Texas is a 37.5 point favorite. Jason, do they cover?
Well, this one's going to be close. I just want to see if I could say that with a straight face. It's not going to be close. I got Texas covering. Usually they do in these games. I think my freshman year, what was that first game? It was UTEP. And the line was 45.5, and Texas covered it by the third quarter. So I'm not comparing this year's team to that year's team, but similar situation, big lines. It's really anyone's guess. I'm going to go with the Longhorns, though.
Great pick. UL Monroe, they were 4-8 last year. I think this Texas team is going to come out ready to play. UL Monroe is not going to have an answer for Bijan Robinson, Xavier Worthy. They're going to have field days. The Texas offensive line, I hope will be able to block the UL defensive ends. I think that's a really good test for them to start with. If they can't do that, then we got some problems ahead with Will Anderson.
You might have 15 sacks next week.
Yeah, exactly. But Bijan Robinson, Xavier Worthy, they're going to have field days. They're going to have a lot of fun. Texas big. They're going to cover. Jordan, bring us home.
No shot I'm picking against Texas here. I'm going to have to be in the press box for that game, so I'm not putting that bad energy out into the universe. Logistically, though, UL Monroe was 4-8 last year while competing in the Sun Belt. Even with their new coach, Terry Bowden, coming into his second year, he's really revamped this Warhawks culture up in Monroe. But I don't see Texas letting ULM even come close to overwhelming them. The Longhorns have a lot to prove, and I think that this is going to be the perfect game to start Sark's second year.
Knock on wood.
Knock on wood.
Well, that'll do it for the 1-0 Sports Show. That was a fun show, guys. Great college football weekend ahead. We'll be back here next Friday. We'll break it all down and get you ready to go for week 2 and week 1 of the NFL. Make sure, too, to check out College Press Box Monday nights at 9:30 when that one gets going again after Labor Day. And then College Crossfire, hosted this year by Tommy Yarish, Wednesday nights at 9. For Jason Kinander and Jordan Mitchell, I'm Adam Ogburn. Big shout out to Kylie Rodriguez and Samantha Pearl and Master Control for running things. For everyone here on 1-0, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Friday.